superintendent. I did inform the selection committee what the process was and the steps that needed to be taken in a very short period of time. The superintendent of schools had given us notice that her last day will be Friday the 13th. That didn't allow for a lot of time. So as board members know, that when I sent over the resignation letter, I also let all board members know that I would be going on the CAP's website and looking at the interim superintendent candidates. So since Thursday and over the weekend, I've made contact with as many as I could that were recommended and see what their availability is and see if they would meet our criteria. So there were many that were already had major jobs that they've already contracted with, and others that were in the process of it, and the availability became an issue. So therefore, we have gotten 3 good candidates that were qualified, and they basically sent over their resumes, which I sent to everybody, and we reviewed. And tonight we discussed in the committee that I had appointed as a search committee to look at these candidates and speak to them and come up with a final conclusion. So here we are. And I'm going to hand this over to Ted Iskowski, who was chairman of the selection committee for a very brief period of time.
Yes, we have come up with a candidate, so I'd like to read it's a 3-part motion. And then if it's seconded, we can open it up to discussion. The first part of the motion, you don't need to write it. So right here.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 10-157, I hereby move to appoint Jim Connelly to serve as interim superintendent of school for a term commencing on August 16, 2010, ending on December 31st, 2010, or until such a time as a new full-time superintendent of schools takes office, whichever is sooner. I hereby move to approve a contract with Jim Connelly to serve as interim superintendent of schools at a per diem rate of $600 per day, consistent with Connecticut General Statutes 10-157. I hereby move to authorize the chairperson of the Board of Education to execute such a contract with Jim Connelly to serve as interim superintendent of schools, pending any necessary further legal review. Second. Okay, and that's seconded by John.
Further discussion?
Can you explain the last paragraph?
I hereby move to authorize the chairperson of the Board of Education to execute such a contract. In other words, be the signing name on the contract with Jim Connelly to serve as interim superintendent of schools, pending any necessary further legal review.
Their contracts are pretty standard. Our law firm already, has these contracts or staples basically, and we just fill in the blanks. And that's what they're saying is that I would take the contract to Mr. Connelly and say, here's the, and he would look at it and say, not a problem, and we would sign off on it.
And our attorney would review it.
Right.
It comes from the attorney.
Right.
Okay. And my other question is, you said that you reviewed a list from
CAP.
Yeah. Superintendents available from CAP. Were there other names on there as well that were available, or
everyone that met the criteria or that was available? Some of them already had where they were working currently, so you know that they were in a Plainville school district or they were in a Stanford school district. So obviously, we weren't calling them. So about a dozen qualified people were called, and 7 had contacted back. A lot of them, again, couldn't make it because of the issue with timing, and so we had the 3 candidates.
So basically all that were available were...
Right.
Yeah, the 3, and we got very lucky because what happened was when I was calling other Board of Education chairmen for additional recommendations and so on, they said, it's very difficult this time of year to get somebody because right now, a lot of school districts, I wouldn't say a lot, but about 7 school districts are looking for superintendents, and so they need an interim, and they're very high in demand, the interims are, and they do consult, they do a lot of consulting, they do go out of state, so it's very difficult to track them down. I did have a difficult time tracking a lot of them down, but they did respond. I was getting nervous in the beginning at first because I thought that everyone was going to be taken on this list. So we lucked out that we had at least 3 candidates to select from, and the timing was critical because we have such a short period of time and we need somebody in right away. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those that agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Abstention?